Hello, and welcome to Women in Business, where we interview entrepreneurs and senior managers and show you the strengths, successes, obstacles, and roadblocks women experience in business. Since I believe every person in business needs to be visible, I'd like to invite you to watch www.sob6, that's the number 6, tips.com, which will give you some valuable information should you get the call to be on radio or TV, which I think is extremely important. If you'd like to contact me personally, drop me a line at Gayle Carson, that's Gayle, Gayle Carson 13 at gmail.com, or go to my website, www.spunkyoldbroad.com, and sign up for my weekly newsletter. My guest today is Lisa Erickson. She's an energy worker specializing in women's energetics and sexual trauma healing, and the author of Chakra Empowerment for Women. She helps women maximize and balance their energy during key life transits such as pregnancy, postpartum, perimenopause, and menopause, including balancing the mother-child energy line. She also works with women to heal emotional wounds on an energy level from abuse and assault. She's passionate about helping any woman connect with their energy bodies. So here we are, and we're going to talk about her Chakra Empowerment for Women. Welcome, Lisa.
Thank you. I'm so glad to be here on your show. So many of the things that you talk about are very important to me, especially redefining aging for women.
Well, that's true. I keep going no matter what. And it's interesting because, this is a tough time. I was just on a call this morning with a group of leaders, all women, and most of them, 99% of them, are working now from home. And some of them have larger companies, some of them have smaller companies, some have always worked remotely, managing teams from afar. But, they're talking about being motivated and what their challenges are and depression and so forth and so on. So you call your work women's energetics. So what exactly does that mean?
Well, our energy body is an interface level between our physical body, our mind, and our psyche. And there's a lot of meditation practice, mindfulness tools, energy healing modalities that use different aspects of our energy body. Yoga, for example, was based on our energy body. It's not just about physical exercise. Acupuncture is as well. And there are tools that people can use. They can to really, activate different aspects of their energy body. And it is helpful for all of the things that you're mentioning: anxiety management, healing from depression management, addiction, trauma healing, and just everyday goal manifestation, being able to really bring forth different energies when you need them, when you need a boost of confidence, when you need to quiet your mind for greater clarity. The chakras, or the main energy centers in our energy body, are our doorways into each of those kinds of energies, and we can learn to activate them to bring about those shifts at will when we need them.
Well, it's interesting because I have to confess that I've really never gone through any of the major things that most women do. I just don't get depressed. In fact, this morning I said it's not difficult for me to be motivated because I'm always motivated. I never went through, postpartum. I did, of course, go through menopause, but all I did was sweat a lot. I mean, it was embarrassing because when I was speaking on stage, I was dripping. But other than that, I mean, I've really never had any of the horrible reactions to anything. Even with all the surgeries I've had, I just bounced back. Mm-hmm. But, and I'm not a big yoga person, Lisa. I'm a big workout person, but yoga, and I prefer Pilates to yoga, although I am a core and strength type person. So you talk about energy, though. So there are differences, you say, in men's and women's energy bodies. And what are they, and why aren't they talked about more?
Yeah, well, in traditional chakra teachings, which I think are the main energy practices that most people might have heard about if they are into yoga or meditation, and these are energy centers in our body. Women's energy is really centered in their second chakra, which is in our pelvises. It's really linked to our reproductive system, which can rub some women the wrong way when they hear that, because it sounds like as if we're saying that women are defined by their reproductive system, which is not the case. But it does mean we have different challenges energetically. This chakra is considered a receptive or yin chakra. This makes us naturally empathic, which means that we tend to need to pay more attention to boundaries. And it also means it's a plus. It also means we have a great ability, a great emotional intelligence naturally that we can utilize, especially in business and in our own life. So there's a lot of different manifestations like that. It also means that our energy does shift with menstruation and pregnancy and menopause, and there's actually powerful ways to use those energetic shifts. Now, one thing that's interesting to me is that I do meet women like yourself who seem to just naturally have the ability to use their energy in that way. And it's interesting because core exercise activates those lower chakras, including this chakra that I'm talking about that women's power is really centered in. So to me, it's a sign that you just naturally found your ability to do that. Of course, there's genetics and a lot of other things at play, but I think it's interesting to me that some women just naturally find this doorway into power without necessarily knowing the specific chakra tools. But for those that don't, these tools can be really helpful.
Yeah, I have to confess I'm one of the ones who I know what chakras are, but I'm not really that familiar with them. I think my best asset, I was raised by a very, very knowledgeable and strong woman. She was not an educated woman, but she really knew how to raise kids and how to create a wonderful, loving environment. And it's interesting because as I, think back about all the things that she did, she actually raised me to face reality and just, jump into whatever I was doing and do the best job of it. So the interesting thing is you also say that women are impacted energetically by motherhood, and that perhaps there's a way to work with this connection to have more connection with our kids consciously. And I would think this is something that's really necessary now as more kids are being homeschooled and parents are dealing with sometimes 2 and 3 kids when they're not used to that, and I think they're giving big credit to teachers who have their kids all day long and keep them occupied, and now they're having to do the same thing. I think I heard a quote from Anna DuVernay, the director, and she said, "I have been homeschooling my kids and I am exhausted, and it's only an hour and 14 minutes. And I thought, boy, isn't that the truth? So what do you have to say about that?
Well, yeah, it's a new reality for all of us. And I have 3 teenagers, so it's a little bit different. They are self-sufficient school-wise for the most part, but we're all competing for bandwidth. I've worked from home for years, but now I'm competing for bandwidth. And also just, no teenager really wants to be stuck at home with their parents for 6 weeks, which is what we're facing. So to have 3 of them, that's a whole different challenge. So different ages bring different parenting challenges. But this mother-child energy line that is part of energy, body, and chakra teachings, really women are especially impacted by this postpartum often, and it can contribute to postpartum depression. If a woman is sort of all of her energy there's this natural energy line between us and our child, and that energy, if all of our energy is just going to the child and we don't learn how to close that line and bring some of our energy up into our upper chakras that are related to other functions, it can contribute to depression. It can contribute to postpartum health issues. Of course, there's a lot of other tools also to manage postpartum, but energy tools, energy meditations that help you focus on closing this mother-child energy line, which is really kind of a visual meditation, and bringing the energy up from your womb area up to distribute throughout your body, can help speed the energetic adjustment process. Really also the other thing that this mother-child energy line teaches us, or part of the teachings, are that our child should be getting more energetically independent as they grow, right? There's these different developmental stages. And if that doesn't happen, if this energy line isn't gradually getting more and more dormant, and if it's not dormant by adulthood, it damages both the mother and the child, right? The child doesn't have the energetic capability to manage their own life, and the mother is too invested, you could say, in their child as opposed to developing their own personal power. So that is a lot of the teachings that are revolve around that mother-child energy line.
Well, to kind of shift the conversation a little bit, you also work with trauma survivors.
Mm-hmm.
So how does trauma impact our energy body? I mean, you now, at least some of these things are coming out in the news, in different programs and online, and we see that this is happening. We hear it's happening, whereas for many years everything was covered up. So how do you work with these people?
Yeah. Well, I work with all different kinds of trauma survivors, but sexual trauma in particular, which you're mentioning. And yeah, we're kind of in this mass consciousness arising around how prevalent this has become. And even if a woman just moves on, it can, and sort of represses the memory of what has occurred. It impacts her own self-perception. We know from trauma studies, it can impact the nervous system, and it impacts a woman's physical body at times. It's like we store traumatic memories in our body. From an energy body perspective, this can really impact our access to this second chakra, feminine power center, because it can cause feelings of shame. It can cause feelings of unworthiness. It can conversely, especially childhood sexual abuse, cause a child, or as he or she enters their teen years, to kind of base all their worthiness on sexuality and move into promiscuity, kind of trying to validate through the only means that they were given attention. So there's different ways that it can play out. And of course, it can later increase a person's susceptibility to depression, to addiction issues, to all of those kinds of things. I think conversely, sometimes what I find, especially in very successful women, I've worked with many women who come to me later in life and they're very successful, actually. And it's almost like they decided never to be vulnerable again. So they put that to good use and became very successful in the world, but have suffered in their personal relationships because they could not become vulnerable. So energy work, focusing on the heart chakra, focusing on healing these wounds within the body with various meditation exercises, can really help a woman shift the way she functions in relationships, understand how she might be using anger as a self-protective wall, and how to work through that and learn different ways of managing. Or if she's triggered through fear, help to work through that fear so that she's not held back by fear of certain situations.
So how do men who are impacted by trauma, you say they react differently. So, and you said in particular sexual trauma. So what happens to a male that's different than a female?
Yeah, some of it is the same in terms of shame and secrecy. For men, there tends to be more emotional repression. So there tends to be more of a physical manifestation. Often the men that I have worked with have become, it's on either end of a spectrum physically. They either really deny their bodies and don't take care of themselves at all. So they have issues with obesity and things like that, or they work out all the time. And it's really an attempt to sort of, again, never be vulnerable again. But in either case, there's kind of this unhealthy relationship to health, right? They're not really connected to their body in terms of health. For women, it can play out the same way, but it has more to do with body image. It has more to do with their relationship with how their body looks. And no matter what, it's never good enough. Or no matter what, to them, it feels unworthy, or they have shame associated with their body that prevents them from being able to engage in basic self-care sometimes. So there's different ways that really that it can play out.
So how does all of this work fit for you within the larger picture of energetic shifts that are happening right now everywhere in the world, and the challenges that we are all facing? Because, every night you hear something a little bit different. It's going to end now, it's going to end then, it's going to end in the future, at some point. And as what I see, we've still got another probably 1 or 2 months before we know really what's happening. So how does this all play in together?
Yeah. Well, if there's one thing that this time is showing us, it's that we are all connected, whether we want to be or not, right? We knew we were sort of on the internet level, but now we're realizing, oh, on this very physical level, we are all connected. What happens in one part of the world impacts the whole world, right? So this has really always been true on the level of energetics. What we feel impacts the people around us emotionally. This is particularly true for women, right? Women are sort of the anchor of their households emotionally. And then to the extent that we're empathic, what others feel can impact us. So really what energy teachings are really about is understanding our connectivity, learning how to connect with our own emotions and separate them from others, learning how to connect with our own energy and separate it from others, focus on building our own power, and then benefiting others through that in whatever way we can. So it's really about sorting out our connectivity, where we are individually as a person, and then how that activates everyone else, or how our vibration and our energy and our mind state impacts the people around us and the greater world. And you take responsibility for kind of your own mind state. And that's what these kind of teachings can really teach. I think the other piece of it is that in my mind right now, we have a rebalancing of feminine and masculine energies in the world. We've sort of devalued a lot of traditional feminine traits like nurturing and caring. We put a lot of emphasis on women and girls having access to power and masculine structures of power, which needed to happen. But we didn't value as much those qualities that had been considered feminine, and that everyone, male and female, needs to activate more of those qualities for us to survive on this planet. So now I think we're having this rebalancing of the feminine and masculine. I think the Me Too movement is part of that. I think this healing of the second chakra and on the energy body level, the healing of women is part of this larger shift of this rebalancing.
So how does this all affect people who identify as trans or pan or non-gendered? I mean, you've got those people who aren't really falling into male or female, and, they're going through a lot of trauma as it is. So how does this all come together for them?
Yeah. Well, it's really a spectrum when I talk about feminine energy body and masculine energy body and these traits. It's this spectrum. And as we open up our ideas about gender and energy, we can all start to access all of them. And I think what the trans and pangender community is doing is really showing us that there's a lot more diversity and variability. And by opening and accepting that, we can all open to more traits within ourselves. The way men and women are conditioned is still so rigid. I have 13-year-old boy-girl twins, and it's amazing to me even now how much boys are still encouraged to repress their emotions, right? How crying is still considered so weak, or showing any sign of that kind of emotion. And how girls are still conditioned to people please, to take responsibility for how everyone else around them is feeling, even if it's at the detriment to their own emotions. These forms of conditioning are still really prevalent, and we need to break those down. And I think that's what opening to greater gender identity helps us to do. It's part of the larger picture of this shift that's going on in the world.
Well, I do think, I have certainly seen a change in guys who have been raised by strong mothers, who are working, who are, blending 2 and 3 things at one time, the family, the job, the responsibilities. I mean, I think the younger generation of male, and your kids, are at that point right now where they're coming into adulthood and going to go through all of this. But I see great strides with guys. I mean, it used to be this. In fact, I was just reading a book the other day, and it said, when I was raised, it was women were either school teachers or nurses. And I thought to myself, my gosh, that's after I was already in business. So I know that I was early on as a kind of a rule breaker, but, I didn't even think about it. It was just, that's what I was going to do. And it's just amazing to me. I think it's a wonderful shift. And I think that women are embracing more masculine energy. I think men are embracing more feminine energy. But how do you recommend that a woman work differently with her energy body than a man?
Yeah. Well, really, the difference comes down to men need to focus on fluidity of their energy. They tend to be rigid. They tend to get stuck more easily, right? And women need to focus more on grounding and boundaries. And there's a lot of other differences depending on the stage of life someone is in as well, like when we get to midlife and things like that. But that is the general thing. So in terms of, say, working with the chakras, what I'm doing in Chakra Empowerment for Women is offering women very basic visuals and breathing techniques that they can use to focus on these two main things in particular: grounding and energetic boundaries, and then how that translates into them activating their power in the world, being able to express their power in the world in a bigger way.
Wow, I think that's really, really helpful. I think boundaries, I think that's really, really important. The fluidity, that's important. And I hope people who are listening to this, both male and female, are taking advantage of what you're saying, because I think you're really directing it into a point of it's not all this or it's not all that. We are a blend of many things, and we need to learn to work with all of the things that we have at our fingertips to make who we are even better and stronger and wiser, and most importantly, at this point in our lives, more really passionate about who we are and what we do and how I'll tell you something. One of the things that has really been wonderful for me, because I live alone with my two cats, and my neighbors have come out of the woodwork. I mean, some of them I don't know very well. I just see them in passing, but I've had groceries dropped at my door. I've had people volunteer to cook for me. I mean, it's just amazing what has happened. So I think this that we're going through right now has really moved us into a whole different space as well. But now I want to talk a little bit about how people can get in touch with you, Lisa. What is the best way for people to find you?
Well, the book is available, Chakra Empowerment for Women, on Amazon and Barnes and Noble and the publisher Llewellyn's website and all those different places. And the book website is chakraempowermentforwomen.com. And from there, people will find some free meditations, including for different stages of life, like postpartum and menopause. And the book covers that as well as trauma healing. And you can also go to my client website, enlightenedenergetics.com, which has other sexual trauma healing resources as well.
Fantastic. And for those of you who may not know how to spell chakra, it's Chakra.
Thank you.
Chakra. Now, you thought you might have a gift available for our listeners, but you weren't sure it was going to be ready yet. So what stage are you in with that?
Yes. Well, on Goodreads, I am doing a book giveaway for the month of April. You can sign up to receive one of 10 copies. Of course, it's a lottery that Goodreads runs. So you go to goodreads.com and just type in the name of the book, Chakra Empowerment for Women. Again, chakra is Chakra, and you will be able to enter that free.
Fantastic. That's great. Well, I think that that you are doing very valuable work. I think probably now, Lisa, you are having even more success than when you started out, because people are becoming more aware of what chakras are, what their empowerment can be, and how it can help if you need it. So I think you're at a perfect place in time in terms of what people are going through and what they need to know. Are there any last minute hints that you want to give anybody? We've got about a minute and a half left that you'd like to tell people about?
Yeah. Well, I wanted to say the chakras are also helpful for immune support. Just focusing on your lower body and visualizing light there is a very basic immune support exercise. And really, it's a kind of mindfulness 2.0. You can really learn to shift your awareness when you need to into more confidence, into more clarity, whatever it is that you need in your life. So give it a try. That's my message. Give it a try.
That sounds wonderful. Plus, I want to tell all you listeners, I have started a Facebook group, the SOB Virtual Club. So if you're over 50 and you'd like to be a member of that club, I'm on there every day answering questions and welcoming new members. So it is SOB Virtual Clubs, and it is, or I should say, single SOB Virtual Club on Facebook under groups. So if you're looking for something to be a little bit more your speed or a part of, and you'd like to connect with me more, please go there and feel free to join. That would be wonderful. You know, my guest has been Lisa Erickson, and I want to again give you the name of her book so that you can find it wherever you go. And so it is I want to make sure I get this right, Chakra Empowerment for Women. So go there, find it, enjoy it. And thank you, Lisa, for being with us today. We certainly enjoyed having you.
Thank you, Dr. Gayle. It's been my pleasure.
You've had the opportunity to get to know me over the last few years, and I'd like to get to know you as well. One of the things I'm offering is training for the media. I have a wonderful program that will get you ready for any radio or TV interview you might be offered. Many of you are doing wonderful things, but no one knows about them. Others of you are successful and wonder, what's next? Whether you're in a business or have a special cause or a specific event you're promoting, media can help, and I can help you master your message so you can master the media. If this sounds interesting to you, email me at gaylecarson13@gmail.com with media training in the subject line. I promise I will be in touch. Thanks for listening to Women in Business. I hope you enjoyed today's show, and if you have any suggestions as to who you'd like me to have as a guest, just email me at gaylecarson13@gmail.com. Be sure to check out www.sob6tips.com. And in the meantime, go to www.spunkyoldbroad.com to see the resources I have for you.